Well, hello, I'm Mr. Malden, and this is the Middle School Math Toolbox, where I teach you how to become a middle school math master. So if you're interested in that, hit the subscribe button down below. Today, we are looking at sampling in statistics, all right? So we're just going to hop right into this. There's not a whole lot of extra information that I can use a whiteboard, so you're just going to see my PowerPoint. I'm going to describe it a little bit, okay? All right, so what is sampling in statistics? First of all, we just have to have the recognition that whenever we're collecting data, so statistics is about data and data analysis, all right? So whenever we're collecting data, it's impractical to generally speaking, to ask every single person in a population the question that we want to ask them and the question that we want answered. All right, let's just take for instance. How many siblings does the average person have in a general area? I live in Birmingham, Alabama, and so I might ask what on average is the number of siblings for the people in Birmingham. Well, it would be impractical to every single house to ask every single person how many siblings they have. And so what we do is we take a sample, all right, which is just a small group of people that we can use to answer that question and gather, our numbers for, and that we can use to represent an entire population. Which means sometimes, we have data that is fair and that is unfair. We're going to talk about that today, all right? Talking about bias in statistics and things like that. So sampling is just meaning that we don't just ask every single person in a population. We ask selected individuals, all right? And we have a process, generally speaking, there's a process for selecting those individuals, but that's what sampling statistics is. To the best of our ability, we want to try to eliminate bias, all right? Now, bias is prejudice, all right? And we usually think of that word in a negative context, but in terms of statistics, it just means favor of a particular person, group, or thing, all right, compared with the others, all right? And usually we consider bias to be unfair, all right? So we want data and statistics that is representative of the entire population, which means it's unbiased. It doesn't have bias as best as we can control, all right? And we understand in sampling that a sampling method is biased if every member of the population doesn't have an equal opportunity to be part of the sample. All right, so going back to this previous slide right here, if we don't have a process for randomly selecting the individuals that are going to participate in this research, then our process is biased because it's not giving everybody equal opportunity to be in the sample. That doesn't mean everybody's going to be in the sample. It just means everybody should have the same probability or opportunity to be in that sample. And if that's the case, then we have an unbiased research, all right? And we try to have as unbiased research as possible. So let's get into these, all right? Now, these are the different sampling methods that we're going to talk about in this video: simple random sampling, stratified sampling, systematic, convenience, and cluster sampling. So let's get into the most popular one, all right? This is the one that's going to have the least amount of bias, all right? Random sampling, also known as simple random sampling, all right, is simply finding some kind of way to randomize the choice of individuals that are going to be inside the study. All right, so in the recognition that we can't reach everybody, we can't ask everybody, we are going to ask a small sample of individuals, and we want to try to randomly select those individuals through some kind of process. A lot of times in our world, we use computers to randomize, all right? In class, whenever I do like a game or something, I use this little double dice. You can kind of see it has two dice inside it, all right? The outside dice tells me my table number, and the inside dice tells me my seat number. Well, when I roll this dice, it randomizes who I'm going to select to answer the question, all right? So I have no control over what the dice is going to roll, and therefore it's unbiased, all right? I don't have any bias about who's going to answer the question and who's not. In the same way, for the research, simple random sampling comes up with some kind of method to be able to randomly select individuals in the population. And therefore, it's the most unbiased of the different sampling methods. There's one other one that's going to be closely related to it called systematic sampling. It's also unbiased, but the two of those together are the ones that are probably preferable, all right, if you have a lot of time to be able to conduct the research. The downside to these is it does take quite a bit of time, all right? Data analysis is a tedious process, all right? In random sampling, systematic as well. It does take a little bit of time to find the individuals that you're going to use for your study and to ask them all the questions, all right? So let's move on to the next one. Let's talk about one that doesn't take a lot of time, all right? Convenience sampling. The word convenient means easy to access, all right, in this terms, or in this sense right here. So convenience sampling, we do this kind of research because it's easy to get the respondents, but the downside to this one is it has the most amount of bias, all right? What is convenience sampling? It focuses on gathering information from people or data that is easy to access, all right? So an example of this would be if I wanted to know how many sodas the average teenager in the city of Birmingham were to drink. It's impossible for me to go to every single teenager in all of Birmingham. So instead, I decide I'm going to go to the mall. All right, I'm going to go to the mall and I'm going to ask the first 20 teenagers how many sodas they drink. And I'm going to conduct my research based upon those 20 respondents. All right. Well, you probably already see kind of the downside that that research is going to be heavily skewed towards individuals who like to go to the mall. All right, and maybe the individuals who like to go to the mall drink more sodas than the average, teenager. Maybe the students that don't like to go to the mall drink less. I don't know. All right, so it's going to be skewed in some kind of way to those individuals who prefer to go to the mall. So that's the downside. Is there's a lot of bias with convenience sampling, but the upside is you can get your research done pretty fast. All right, so if you're looking for a quick answer that might not be the most accurate, but at least gives us a ballpark figure, then convenience sampling might be the one you want to do. Okay, and because the selection of participants is limited to those that are easy to attain, it is biased, heavily biased. All right, out of all the ones I'm going to show you today, this one has the most amount of bias. All right. Let's go on to systematic sampling. I told you that this is similar to random sampling, all right? Systematic sampling. It's just a little bit more organized of a process for getting the respondents, all right? This is a method you might use if you didn't have a computer or a method to randomize how you're going to collect the data. You could list the population, all right, in order, and then you could take regular intervals from that. Maybe we're going to list all the data down, and we're going to take, every fifth number, all right? And that's going to be the numbers that we use. Instead of using all the data, because it will take a long time to use all the data for data analysis, we're going to take regular intervals, all right? So if I've got 100 numbers, all right, 100 pieces of data, I might take number 5, number 10, number 15, number 20, all right? This is still somewhat of a random process, all right, because there's no controlling where the data falls, all right? So by picking certain intervals, you still have somewhat of a random process. And therefore, systematic sampling is considered unbiased, all right? Just like random sampling. Those are the two most fair ways of conducting the research. All right, hopefully, I just paused the video. Hopefully I came back to it and it's just fine. If not, then you just saw me being random. I had to go have something on my screen. Anyways, all right, so let's get back to it. All right, so systematic sampling is taking regular intervals. And you can kind of see the graphic here, how the first and then the 4 people down, so the third, the next 3. So they're taking regular intervals of every third person on this one. All right, next one, cluster sampling. Cluster sampling simply takes all the population and divides it up into equal parts, all right? And then the clusters are randomly selected, which ones you're gonna do. You're not gonna conduct the research in all the clusters. You'll collect research from a couple of the clusters, all right? And then you'll have some kind of randomizing process for how you choose the respondents inside that cluster, all right? This is something that you might do if you wanted to get a general idea of, you know, a city and who they're going to vote for in the next election, all right? You might divide it into geographical regions or clusters and then go to those and conduct, you know, choose a couple of them and use those, you know, find some kind of random way to sample those individuals in those clusters and then use that research, all right? Cluster sampling is considered biased, all right, because it's not completely fair. Not every person in the population has an equal probability of being selected. It's a whole lot less biased than convenience sampling, but it's still somewhat biased, all right? And the like is with stratified sampling. Stratified sampling and cluster sampling are really closely related. Stratified sampling breaks up the population based upon some kind of characteristic that people share in common, whether it's race or gender or academic ability or background or some other kind of, you know, characteristic that they have in common. We separate them into those groups and then we randomly select from each group the individuals that we're going to have for the sample, all right? And like cluster sampling, stratified sampling is considered biased because not every respondent has a fair chance or completely fair probability for being selected, even though it's a whole lot less biased than like convenience sampling or something. So hopefully this video helped you a little bit with understanding, you know, let me go back here, move my, there we go, move my video around so you can see all of them, all right? Simple random sampling is going to be sampling just a random group of individuals. Systematic sampling, again, is an unbiased research where you take respondents at regular intervals in the list. And then you've got convenience sampling, which is accessing those individuals or that pieces of the data that are easy to access. And then you've got cluster, which is dividing the population into groups and then finding some kind of random process to select the individuals from there. And then you've got stratified sampling, which is separating into groups that have some kind of shared characteristics and then randomly selecting from individuals in there. So I hope you have a good day. I hope this, if you like this, this lesson, hit the like button down below and we'll see you next time.